Good evening. In this month's programme, we take a look at the spring sky. Many of you will have heard of the signs of the zodiac. Names such as Aries, Taurus and Gemini are known to most people, and in the days when astrology was ranked as a true science, the zodiac was of great importance. Yet a great many people fail to realise what the zodiac actually is. Because the Earth moves around the Sun in a period of 1 year, the Sun seems to travel right round the sky in 12 months. The apparent yearly path of the Sun among the stars is known as the ecliptic. Obviously, one cannot see the Sun and the stars at the same time, except during the fleeting moments of a total eclipse of the Sun, but the position of the Sun in the constellations for any time can be worked out. Astronomers refer to it as the apparent Sun. The zodiac is a band extending for 8 degrees to either side of the ecliptic, and it is here that the Moon and the bright planets are always to be found. The reason for this is that the paths of the orbits of the planets are not sharply inclined to that of the Earth, so that the planets may be seen only in certain directions. Draw a plan of the solar system on a flat piece of paper, and you are not far wrong. The orbital inclination is 7 degrees for Mercury, 3 degrees for Venus, and less than this value for all the rest. This is a great help in identifying the planets. During its yearly wanderings, the Sun spends 6 months in the northern hemisphere of the sky and 6 months in the southern. This means that it must cross the celestial equator twice, once around the 22nd of March when moving from south to north, the spring or vernal equinox, and again around the 22nd of September when moving from north to south, the autumn equinox. Therefore, on those dates, the Sun must be exactly on the equator. When the constellation patterns were first drawn up, the spring equinox lay in Aries around, and were therefore known as the first point of Aries, while the autumn equinox was situated in the obscure constellation of Libra the Scales. This is no longer true, because of an infract-term precession, the positions of the poles and the equator of the sky changed slightly over the years, and this must affect the positions of the equinoxes, so that by now the first point of Aries has been shifted into the adjacent constellation of Pisces or Fishes, while the first point of Libra is now in Virgo the Virgin. This means that the astrological signs of the zodiac are now out of step, and the actual constellations, but the result is not important, except to those who are naive enough to believe in astrology. So for the moment, let us consider these zodiacal constellations and see what they have to offer us. During the spring evenings, the zodiac constellations of Taurus the Bull and Gemini the Twins are setting in the west, along with the winter constellations of Orion and Canis Major, while Cancer the Crab, Leo the Lion and Virgo the Virgin are nicely on view in the south. It is useful to have a prominent constellation that can be used as a signpost to the others in the sky, and the Plough does this nicely as it is now high overhead in the northern sky. So let us begin with the northern groups. The most famous pattern of 7 stars making up the Plough is only part of Ursa Major, though the rest of the constellation is inconspicuous. Ursa Minor contains the pole star, Polaris, which is highly luminous and which lies at a distance of nearly 700 light years. During spring evenings, the Plough asterism, which is made up of 7 bright stars, can be seen high up in the northern sky. The top 2 stars in the bowl, Merak and Dubhe, are known as the pointers, because they lead the way to the pole star. Then we come to Thad, followed by the 4 stars in the handle, Migres, Alioth, Mizar and Alked. The second star up in the handle of the Plough is Alcor and Mizar, also known as the Horse and Rider, which is an easy double star visible in binoculars and is known to be a test for keen eyesight. The Plough is on prominent display this season, so a number of splendid deep sky objects are on view, many of which can be seen in moderate telescopes, while they make ideal subjects for photography. If you are interested in photographing the deep sky objects and planets, I highly recommend Amateur Astrophotography magazine, which is a very popular publication dedicated to astrophotographers worldwide. It has 75 pages of useful hints and tips and is brimming with exceptional photographs of solar system and deep sky objects. Please visit the website amateurastrophotography.net. Let us begin with Messier 101, known as the Pinwheel Galaxy, which is located to the left of Alciad and Mizar, forming a triangle. The galaxy is of magnitude plus 7.9 and is an ideal subject for astronomical photography. Messier 101 is a relatively large galaxy compared to the Milky Way. With a diameter of 170,000 light years, it is 70% larger than the Milky Way, and it lies at a distance of 21 million light years. Lord Rosse, in the Republic of Ireland, observed Messier 101 in his 72-inch reflector during the second half of the 19th century. He was the first to make extensive notes of the spiral structure and made several sketches. To the right of Alciad, at a similar distance, is Messier 51, which is actually located in the nearby constellation of Canis Venatici, the hunting dogs. Recently, it was estimated to be 23.5 million light years from our Milky Way galaxy. Messier 51 is one of the best known galaxies in the sky. Shining at magnitude plus 8.4, the galaxy and its companion, NGC 5195, are easily observed by amateur astronomers, and the two galaxies may even be seen with binoculars. The galaxy was discovered on October the 13th, 1773, by Charles Messier while hunting for objects that could confuse comet hunters, and was designated in Messier's catalogue as number 51. Its companion galaxy, NGC 5195, was discovered in 1781 by Perry Meechin, although it was not known whether it was interacting or merely another galaxy passing at a distance. It was not until 1845 that William Parsons, the third Earl of Rosse, using a 72-inch telescope at Bear Castle, found a whirlpool possessed a spiral structure, the first nebula known to have one. It was consequently named the Whirlpool Galaxy. The star Merak, one of the pointers, is of importance at this time of the year. A little below Beta Ursa Majoris can be found Messier 97, also called the Owl Nebula, which is a planetary nebula 1,630 light years from the Earth. It has a magnitude of approximately plus 10. Close by is Messier 108, which is a faint galaxy of magnitude plus 10.7. They can both be seen with a moderate telescope of 6 inches aperture, and they make ideal candidates for photographers. Now join Madras and Dubé with an imaginary line, and follow this line the same distance again, high overhead, and you will come to Messier 81 and Messier 82, two galaxies which lie within half a degree of each other. They can be glimpsed in the same field of view with a 10 by 50 binoculars when the night is moonless and the sky transparent. They shine at magnitude plus 7.9 and 8.8 respectively, and are best seen in a 3-inch refractor. A supernova played up recently in Messier 82, and we devoted our March programme to it and supernova in general. This is available to see again on our Vimeo TV channel. To the right of Alciad lies a constellation of Canis Venatici, which represents the two hunting dogs, Asterion and Chara, which are being held by Boötes. The name of the brightest star, Cocoroli, was given the name by Edmund Halley in honour of King Charles I of England, and is the only star brighter than magnitude plus 4, so that moonlight will obscure the constellation. Cocoroli is one of the most attractive double stars for small telescopes, with a colour contrast of white and pale lilac. The companion is of magnitude plus 5.5, and the pair have a separation of 19.5 seconds of arc. Canis Venatici contains over 20 galaxies, the brightest being Messier 94, shining at magnitude plus 8.9, and Messier 63 at 9.3, and they make ideal targets for photographers. Messier 63 is known as the Sunflower Galaxy, which can easily be found by sweeping an area midway between Corcoroli and the end star and the Bear's Tail. It lies at a distance of 37 million light-years. Messier 94 is easily found in small telescopes as it forms a triangle with alpha and beta, and it lies 1.5 degrees above a line joining them. Messier 94 lies at a distance of 17.5 million light-years, and we see it face on. Brennusses here is a small constellation which contains no stars above magnitude plus 4.3 and is actually a large dim cluster known as MEL 111 moving together through space, lying at a distance of 250 light-years. Once again, due to the faintness of its stars, moonlight will hide the constellation. It lies midway between Canis Venatici and Leo Minor. The name Berenices here comes from a romantic Eastern legend. Berenices, the daughter of Philadelphus, fell in love with and married her own brother, Euergetes, one of the kings of Egypt. Euergetes was required to take part in a dangerous exhibition, and she vowed that if he returned safely to her, she would dedicate her beautiful hair to Venus. Subsequently, he returned safely, and Berenices, true to her promise, cut off her long tresses and hung them in the temple of Venus. However, they mysteriously disappeared, and when the wise men were consulted about it, one of them, an astronomer named Conon, declared that Jupiter was so enraptured by them that he had set them forever in the heavens. Being sent for by Euergetes, Conon pointed out the new constellation, saying, "There behold the locks of the Queen." The constellation contains a large cluster of galaxies, visible in moderate-sized telescopes, 6 of which appear in the catalogue of nebulae drawn up by Charles Messier, which make ideal subjects for photography. Messier 53 is a globular cluster of magnitude plus 7.6, which is just visible on dark, transparent nights with 10 by 50 binoculars. Messier 64 is a spiral galaxy of magnitude plus 8.8. It is a faint object in 2.5-inch telescopes, although 10 by 80 binoculars show it reasonably well. And Messier 88 is also a galaxy, this time with an apparent magnitude of plus 10.2, which requires at least a 4-inch telescope to see it. Now, go back to the plough, and following through the handle downward, we come first to Arcturus in Boötes, the Herdsman, which can hardly be missed, as with the exception of Sirius, it is the brightest star ever visible from England. It is also prominent because of its glorious orange colour. Stars are not fixed in space, they move at great speed. It is only because they are so far away from us we don't notice the motion, except over long timescales. Astronomers call this proper motion, and usually measure it in seconds of arc. A star's motion can either be away from us, towards us, or across our field of view. A remarkable fact about Arcturus is its great annular proper motion of 2.3 seconds of arc, the largest proper motion shown by any of the first magnitude stars, with the exception of Alpha Centauri in the southern hemisphere. The motion was first detected by Sir Edmund Halley in 1718. The actual speed of Arcturus is almost 90 miles per second in the direction of the constellation of Virgo. This motion has been bringing the star closer to the Earth ever since it first became visible to the naked eye nearly 500,000 years ago. At the moment, Arcturus is almost at its minimum distance from the solar system, about 36.5 light-years. The star is presently approaching us at a radial velocity of about 3 miles per second, which will gradually diminish to 0 as the star passes us several thousand years from now. Arcturus will then move away from us as it continues its motion towards Virgo and will have faded below naked eye visibility in the course of another 500,000 years. There are few objects of interest in the constellation except for the binary star Epsilon Boötes, also known as Pulcherama. It is a yellow-orange star shining at magnitude plus 2.7 with a white magnitude 5.1 companion, which is visible in a 2-inch telescope. The rest of Boötes is rather obscure, but it is a way of looking for Corona Borealis, a semicircle of stars which actually does look like a crown. Inside the circle can be found the variable star R Corona Borealis, which fluctuates in magnitude between plus 2 and 10.8. At the moment, it is near minimum brightness, so that a medium-sized telescope is needed to show it. R Corona is actually classed as a recurrent nova. R Corona stars are yellow supergiants 10,000 times as bright as the Sun, but has lost their outer envelope of hydrogen gas. Their atmospheres are rich in helium and carbon instead. Stars are element makers. Inside their interiors, hydrogen atoms fuse to make helium. When the hydrogen is used up, helium fuses to make carbon. In other words, SOT. Our corona stars launch carbon dust into space in big clouds. When a cloud is aimed in our direction, we see the star eclipsed or blocked by the SOT for a time. Nobody knows exactly what triggers our corona's sooty outbursts, but every few years it belches out another cloud and goes into hiding again. Follow the cloud Arcturus curve still further, and we come to Virgo, where the leading star, Spica, is bright enough to be easily identified. The Virgin herself takes the form of a distorted Y. Note Panorama, more generally known by Bayer's designation of Gamma Virginis, which any small telescope will show to be a spectacular binary. The components are almost exactly equal, so that here we have a case of true stellar twinning. Both components are of magnitude plus 3.6, yellow-white in colour, and easily visible in a 2-inch telescope. The orbit of the companion star is highly eccentric, and often the two stars are so close only large telescopes can separate them. They were at their closest in 2007 and are now separated again. The period is 171 years. Virgo contains a large cluster of faint galaxies in the area of sky above Gamma Virginis, marked by the bowl shape of the stars. 10 of the galaxies appear in the catalogue of Charles Messier, the brightest being Messier 49, which is a magnitude plus 8.6. The area makes an ideal subject for photography. Not far off is Leo the Lion. Regulus is the brightest star, and the sickle, shaped rather like a reverse question mark, is unique. Algebra, or Gamma Leonis, is a binary, while the other important star in the constellation, the nebula, is suspected of being variable in brightness. Again, the plough makes an ideal signpost to the constellation. Locate the pointers and follow them in the opposite direction to the pole star, and you will soon come across the sickle. Beta Leonis, the nebula, is a white magnitude plus 1.6 star, marking one corner of a triangle of stars to the left of the sickle. In the Middle Ages, while Regulus was supposed to be of good influence, the nebula was considered to be a very unlucky star by astrologers. Gamma Leonis, Algebra, lies in the sickle. It is one of the finest binary systems in the sky, both members being giant stars of magnitude plus 2.6 and 3.8, with a contrast of orange and yellow. It is now seen in small telescopes. I have another variable star for you, R Leonis, which lies to the right of Regulus, plainly visible with the naked eye at maximum brightness. This red star varies between magnitude plus 4.4 to 11.6 over a period of 313 days and can be followed to minimum brightness with a 6-inch telescope. Below the main body of Leo, in the area to the left of Regulus, can be found a rich cluster of galaxies. These include Messier 65, which is a spiral galaxy seen edgewise on. It has an apparent magnitude of plus 9.3 and is visible with a 2.5-inch telescope and 10 by 80 binoculars. Leo is the centre of attention every November due to the Leonid meteor shower, which produced the most brilliant and prolific displays seen in modern times. The shooting stars originate from a radiant point within the sickle, a little west of Gamma Leonis. The shower reaches peak activity each year between the 14th and the 17th of November and produces meteors moving very swiftly with short paths. In an average annual display, the observer will see around 70 shooting stars an hour. The Leonids are associated with comet P. Tempel-Tuttle. The Great Shower of 1966 was followed by that of 1988, and the next is due to take place in 2021. In the area of sky to the right of the sickle and to the left of the bright stars Castor and Pollux in Gemini twins lies the fainter constellation Cancer the Crab, resembling an upside-down Y, which is one of the oldest of the constellations, but which has only one star as bright as the 4th magnitude. One interesting star is Zeta Canceri, or Tagamin. It is an easy telescopic double. The apparent separation is almost 6 seconds of arc, and the orbital period is 1,150 years. The brighter component is itself a binary, magnitude plus 5.7 and 6.2, separation half a second of arc, orbital period 60 years. There is a third, very faint component at 288 seconds of arc, and there may yet be another star in the system. A small telescope gives a pleasing view of the main pair. The brightest member of the group is about 3 times as luminous as the Sun. There is one object of real interest. This is Prysept, an open star cluster, inferior only to the Pleiades. Prysept, Messier 44, is clearly visible to the naked eye whenever the sky is clear and dark. Look at the point halfway between Regulus and Pollux, and you will make out 2 faint stars of Cancer, Delta, magnitude plus 4.2, and Gamma, 4.7. Between the two, slightly west of a line joining them, will be seen the faint shimmer of Prysept, which has been aptly named the Beehive. No individual stars can be made out without a telescope, but the Prysept is a fine example of an open cluster. If you can see it, you may be sure that the air is clear and transparent. There is nothing else of immediate interest in Cancer, but it is worth noting that the constellation lies in the zodiac, so that the bright planets pass through it from time to time. The ecliptic, the Sun's apparent path, runs through the middle of Gemini, the twins, the Prysept in Cancer, then close to Regulus, the brightest star in Leo, before arcing round above the bright star Spica in the constellation of Virgo, the Virgin. Hydra is an extremely long constellation, extending more than 100 degrees from west to east. Its only prominent star is Alphard, which shines at magnitude plus 2.2. The best way to locate Alphard is to use Castor and Pollux in Gemini as a signpost and follow a line low down into the western sky. The head of the mythical snake lies below Cancer and then winds eastward between Leo and Virgo and finally ends near Libra. The constellation is not well placed for observers in the northern hemisphere, and it requires a clear, moonless night to trace out the winding form. In mythology, one story asserts that it represents the water serpent killed by Hercules. Another story, a more traditional one, connects it with the legend of Corvus the Crow. Interpretations, in which it is named the Lernaean serpent, say that this monster lived in a swamp near a stream and was accustomed to ravage the country of Argos. The beast possessed several heads, and the middle one was immortal. Hercules attacked it, but was startled to find that each time he cut off a head, 2 new ones appeared. His companion, Lolius, suggested burning each stump as he severed the head, and this successfully prevented new growth. When the immortal head was cut off, the monster died, and Hercules buried the head securely under a rock. Afterwards, he used the serpent's blood to dip his arrows, which it is said made even the lightest wound inflicted by them fatal. According to another legend, Juno, envious of the success of Hercules, sent a crab to bite his feet while he was preoccupied in his battle. Alphard is yellow-orange in colour, a prominent star, since it is by far the brightest in this part of the sky. Tycho Brahe nicknamed it Cor Hydra, the Hydra's heart, but an alternative name is Hydra's neck, sometimes referred to as a solitary one. The only deep sky object in Hydra is a large open star cluster, Messier 48, which is of magnitude plus 5.3 and covers an area the size of the full moon. Messier 48 contains about 80 stars and is a very easy object for binoculars. It is one of the most distant star clusters known. It lies 300,000 light years away. Corvus lies well south of the celestial equator, but when at its highest, as during late evenings in April, it is prominent enough. The best way to locate it is to continue the curved line beginning at the Great Bear's tail and passing through Arcturus and Spica. Corvus stands out because it lies in an extremely barren area. The constellation is formed by Gamma, magnitude plus 2.6, Beta 2.7, Delta and Epsilon, each plus 3. Incidentally, Alpha Corvi, close to Epsilon, is only a magnitude plus 4.2, even though it has been allotted the first letter of the Greek alphabet. There are no notable objects in the group. Crater the Cup is situated close by Corvus, in the back of Hydra. For northern observers, it can be found lying due south of the distinctive triangle of Leo, and also by the prominent shape of Corvus immediately to the east of it. In mythology, one legend considers that the cup belonged to Bacchus, while other stories refer to it as the goblet of Apollo. A Greek writer refers to it as the cup of oblivion of the Plutonists. At various times, it has also been more mundanely described as the water bucket or two-handled pot. So far, we've been concentrating on the view from the northern hemisphere of the Earth, but it so happens that some of the most important objects in the stellar sky are in the far south. First and foremost, of course, are Centaurus, the Centaur, and Crux Australis, the Southern Cross, which during April evenings are almost overhead to Australians or New Zealanders. Centaurus almost surrounds the cross because it is a large constellation. A small part of Centaurus protrudes above the British horizon, but not much, and the two brilliant pointers of the cross, Alpha and Beta Centauri, are well out of view. They are not true neighbours. Alpha is the nearest of all the bright stars, at just over 4 light years. Its faint red dwarf companion, Proxima, is slightly closer, but is too faint to be seen without a powerful telescope and is not easy to identify. Beta is a distant, powerful giant. Alpha Centauri is a magnificent binary. The components are of magnitude plus 0.0 and 1.2, and the separation is great enough for the pair to be split with a very small telescope. It is a binary system with an orbital period of 79.9 years, so that separation and position angle change quite quickly. Oddly enough, Alpha Centauri has never had a universally accepted proper name. Ptolemy, Bandula and Rigel Kant have all been used, but astronomers simply refer to it as Alpha Centauri. The spring sky is therefore a kind of celestial zoo with large constellations, few bright stars, though it is of great interest to photographers because of the distant clusters of galaxies, with the Beehive star cluster centre of attention. I trust that you are now inspired to venture outdoors and view some of the splendid objects mentioned in tonight's programme. That's all we have time for this month. I would like to say thank you to Oliver C. Zernetz, Stuart Ledbury, Jeff Johnson, Steve Linden, and readers of Amateur Astrophotography magazine for allowing me to use some of their impressive images of deep sky objects in this month's programme. Please visit our website, Vimeo, where you can watch all of the past shows of Astronomy in Space, and if you like this programme, please share it with your friends and members of your local astronomical society. Until we come back next month, good evening. Are now at a step and the actual constellations, but the result is not important except to those who are naive enough to believe in astrology. So for the moment, let us consider these zodiacal constellations and see what they have to offer us. During the spring evenings, the zodiac constellations of Taurus the Bull and Gemini the Twins are setting in the west, along with the winter constellations of Orion and Canis Major, while Cancer the Crab, Leo the Lion and Virgo the Virgin are nicely on view in the south. It is useful to have a prominent constellation that can be used as a signpost to the others in the sky, and the Plough does this nicely as it is now high overhead in the northern sky. So let us begin with the northern groups. The most famous pattern of 7 stars making up the Plough is only part of Ursa Major, though the rest of the constellation is inconspicuous. Ursa Minor contains the pole star, Polaris, which is highly luminous and which lies at a distance of nearly 700 light years. During spring evenings, the Plough asterism, which is made up of 7 bright stars, can be seen high up in the northern sky. The top 2 stars in the bowl, Merak and Dubhe, are known as the pointers, because they lead the way to the pole star. Then we come to Thad, followed by the 4 stars in the handle, Migres, Alioth, Mizar and Alked. The second star up in the handle of the Plough is Alcor and Mizar, also known as the Horse and Rider, which is an easy double star visible in binoculars and is known to be a test for keen eyesight. The Plough is on prominent display this season, so a number of splendid deep sky objects are on view, many of which can be seen in moderate telescopes, while they make ideal subjects for photography. If you are interested in photographing the deep sky objects and planets, I highly recommend Amateur Astrophotography magazine, which is a very popular evening. In this month's programme, we take a look at the spring sky. Many of you will have heard of the signs of the zodiac. Names such as Aries, Taurus and Gemini are known to most people, and in the days when astrology was ranked as a true science, the zodiac was of great importance. Yet a great many people fail to realise what the zodiac actually is. Because the Earth moves around the Sun in a period of 1 year, the Sun seems to travel right round the sky in 12 months. The apparent yearly path of the Sun among the stars is known as the southern. This means that it must cross the celestial equator twice, once around the 22nd of March when moving from south to north, the spring or vernal equinox, and again around the 22nd of September when moving from north to south, the autumn equinox. Therefore, on those dates, the Sun must be exactly on the equator. When the constellation patterns were first drawn up, the spring equinox lay in Aries around, and were therefore known as the first point of Aries. while the autumn equinox was situated in the obscure constellation of Libra the Scales. This is no longer true, because of an infract-term precession, the positions of the poles and the equator of the sky changed slightly over the years, and this must affect the positions of the equinoxes, so that by now the first point of Aries has been shifted into the adjacent constellation of Pisces the Fishes, while the first point of Libra is now in Virgo the Virgin. This means that the astrological signs of the zodiac are ecliptic. Obviously, one cannot see the sun and the stars at the same time, except during the fleeting moments of a total eclipse of the sun, but the position of the sun in the constellations for any time can be worked out. Astronomers refer to it as the apparent sun. The zodiac is a band extending for 8 degrees to either side of the ecliptic, and it is here that the moon and the bright planets are always to be found. The reason for this is that the paths of the orbits of the planets are not sharply inclined to that of the Earth, so that the planets may be seen only in certain directions. Draw a plan of the solar system on a flat piece of paper, and you are not far wrong. The orbital inclination is 7 degrees for Mercury, 3 degrees for Venus, and less than this value for all the rest. This is a great help in identifying the planets. During its yearly wanderings, the sun spends 6 months in the northern hemisphere of the sky and 6 months